If you look, he'll shoot. 4 words whispered in a crowded restaurant changed everything. A waitress saw death coming. A mafia boss had seconds to decide. One dropped fork triggered an avalanche of loyalty, betrayal, and impossible choices. Some debts can never be repaid. Some protection becomes a prison. Some love stories begin with a bullet that never fired. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The fork hit the plate with a sound that made everyone in the restaurant freeze. It was a Friday night at the Obsidian, and Alina had been working tables for 3 hours straight. Her feet hurt, her back hurt, but she kept moving, kept smiling, kept pouring wine into crystal glasses that cost more than her monthly rent. The Obsidian wasn't just any restaurant. It was the kind of place where men wore watches that could buy a house, where women draped themselves in diamonds and spoke in whispers, where the wrong word could get you fired or worse. Alina knew worse. She had grown up in the foster system, bouncing from house to house, family to family. No one ever wanted her for long. She learned early to watch, to listen, to see things before they happened. It was how you survived when no one was protecting you. Tonight, something felt wrong. The air was too heavy, the conversations too quiet. Even the kitchen staff seemed nervous, moving faster than usual, eyes darting toward the dining room. Table 9 sat in the corner, away from the windows, tucked into a spot where the light was soft and the shadows deep. The man at table 9 always requested that spot. His name was Daniel. Everyone knew who Daniel was, even if they pretended not to. He ran half of New Orleans. The other half pretended he didn't exist. Daniel came to the Obsidian every Friday at 8. He always ordered the same thing: steak, rare, a bottle of wine older than Alina, and he always brought someone with him. Different people, nervous people, people who left looking either relieved or terrified. Tonight he was with a man named Paul. Alina had served Paul before. He was jumpy, sweaty, the kind of man who looked over his shoulder every 30 seconds. She approached their table with the wine, her smile practiced and perfect. Daniel didn't look at her. He never looked at servers, but Paul did. Paul looked at everyone constantly, like he expected something bad to happen. "More wine, gentlemen?" Alina asked, her voice smooth. Daniel nodded once. She poured. That's when she saw it. A flash just for a second. In the window of the old textile factory across the street. The building had been abandoned for years, windows dark and empty. But tonight, one window wasn't empty. There was something there, a reflection, a glint of metal catching the streetlight. Alina's hand didn't shake. She had learned long ago not to show fear, but her heart slammed against her ribs. She knew what that glint was. She had seen enough crime movies, enough news reports. That was a scope, a rifle scope, and it was pointed directly at Daniel. Her mind raced. She could run, she could scream, she could drop the bottle and let chaos break loose. But all of those things would get Daniel killed. The moment he moved, the moment anyone made a sudden sound, that trigger would pull. So Alina did the only thing she could think of. She leaned in close to Daniel, as if she was about to tell him about a special dish. "Don't turn your head," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Second floor, third window across the street. If you look, he shoots." Daniel's eyes didn't move, he didn't blink, but something changed in his face. Something hard and cold settled there. He picked up his fork, cut a piece of steak. Then, very deliberately, he let the fork slip from his fingers. The sound was sharp, loud. The silver fork hit the china plate and then clattered to the floor. Everyone in the restaurant looked up. And then everything happened at once. 2 men at the bar stood up. A couple at a nearby table flipped it on its side, sending glasses and plates crashing. The bartender pulled something from under the counter, and 3 more men appeared from the kitchen, moving fast. These weren't customers. They were Daniel's people. They had been here all along, hiding in plain sight. Alina stumbled back, nearly dropping the wine bottle. Strong hands grabbed her shoulders and pulled her toward the wall. One of Daniel's men, a tall guy with a scar on his cheek, pushed her behind him. Stay down, he said, not unkindly. Daniel was already moving. Two of his men surrounded him, making a wall with their bodies, and they pushed him toward the kitchen. But before he disappeared through the doors, Daniel turned his head. He looked directly at Alina. It was just a moment, maybe 2 seconds, but in that look she saw something she didn't expect. Not gratitude, not fear, something else. Recognition, like he was memorizing her face. Then he was gone. The restaurant exploded into chaos. Customers were screaming, diving under tables. The manager was yelling into a phone, and outside, Elena could hear sirens. Police cars screeched to a stop in front of the old factory. Officers poured out, guns drawn, running into the building. More cars arrived, an ambulance, news vans. But no shots had been fired. Elena stood against the wall, breathing hard, watching it all happen. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was catching up to her. One of Daniel's men, the one with the scar, came back over to her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "You did good," he said. Then he pressed something into her hand. "The boss wanted you to have this." Before she could look at what it was, he walked away, disappearing into the kitchen where Daniel had gone. Elena looked down at her palm. It was a business card, heavy paper, expensive, just a phone number, nothing else. She shoved it into her apron pocket and tried to steady her breathing. The police were inside the factory now. She could see flashlights moving in the dark windows, and then they brought someone out, not a sniper, a man in a suit. His hands were behind his back, in handcuffs. Elena squinted, trying to see his face. It was Paul, Daniel's dinner guest, the nervous, sweaty man who had been sitting at table 9. Her blood ran cold. What had she just walked into? The next 2 days were strange. The restaurant closed for renovations, which everyone knew was code for crime scene investigation. Elena stayed home in her tiny apartment, watching the news, waiting for something to make sense. The news said the police had stopped an assassination attempt. They said a known criminal had been targeted but escaped safely. They said a man had been arrested for conspiracy to commit murder. They showed Paul's face, but they blurred it out. They never mentioned Daniel's name. They never mentioned the obsidian. It was like the whole thing had been wrapped up in silk and hidden away. Elena tried to go about her normal life. She went to the grocery store. She paid her bills. She called the restaurant to ask when they'd reopen, but the whole time she felt eyes on her, like someone was watching. On the 3rd day, she found out she was right. She was walking home from the laundromat, her arms full of clean clothes, when a black car pulled up beside her. Not a regular car, something expensive, quiet, the kind of car that cost more than most people made in a year. The back window rolled down. A man leaned out, not Daniel, someone else, older with grey hair and a suit that probably cost thousands. "Miss Elena," he said, and her heart dropped into her stomach. He knew her name. "Mr. Daniel would like to speak with you." It wasn't a question, it was a statement. She could run, she could scream, but something told her that wouldn't help. These men didn't hurt people on busy streets in the middle of the day. And besides, if Daniel wanted to hurt her, she'd already be hurt. "Where?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Get in," the man said. "We'll take you." Elena hesitated for only a moment. Then she climbed into the car. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The seats were soft. The windows were tinted so dark she could barely see out. The man who had spoken to her sat across from her, saying nothing, his hands folded in his lap. They drove for 15 minutes. Elena tried to memorize the turns, the streets, but after a while she lost track. Finally, the car stopped. They were at a building she didn't recognize. Tall, modern, glass and steel. The man opened the door for her and gestured toward the entrance. "Top floor," he said. Elena got out. Her legs felt shaky. She walked into the building, past a doorman who nodded at her like he'd been expecting her, and got into an elevator. The man pressed the button for the roof. The roof. The elevator climbed. Elena's ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped out into something that looked like a movie set. It was a rooftop lounge, glass walls on every side, showing the whole city spread out below. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. There were comfortable chairs, low tables, soft music playing from somewhere. And in the center of it all, standing by the glass wall, was Daniel. He turned when he heard the elevator doors. He was dressed differently than he had been at the restaurant. No suit jacket, just a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and dark pants. He looked younger like this, more human. "Elena," he said, and his voice was warm, almost friendly. She didn't move from the elevator. "You wanted to see me." "I did," he gestured to a chair. "Please sit." She walked over slowly, every instinct screaming at her to be careful. She sat on the edge of the chair, ready to run if she needed to. Daniel sat across from her. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a bottle on the table. He pushed one toward her. She didn't touch it. He smiled just a little. "You don't trust me." "I don't know you," Elena said. "Fair enough." He took a sip of his wine. "Do you know why you're here?" "To thank me," she guessed. "Partly," he set down his glass, "but mostly to tell you the truth." Elena's stomach tightened. "What truth?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her. "The man in that window, the sniper, I knew he was there." Her blood ran cold. "What?" "I knew about the whole thing," Daniel continued, his voice calm. "The plan, the hit, all of it." Elena felt dizzy. "Then why did you let it happen?" "Because I needed to know who set it up." Daniel's eyes were hard now. "I had suspicions. Paul had been acting strange for weeks, nervous, making mistakes. I needed proof." "So you used yourself as bait," Elena said slowly. "Exactly," Daniel nodded. "The sniper was one of my own men. Paul thought he'd bought him off, but the man came to me first. We staged the whole thing. I was waiting for Paul to give the signal. The moment he did, I'd know for certain he was the traitor." Elena's mind was spinning. "But I warned you. I told you about the sniper." "You did," Daniel's expression softened. "And that, Elena, was not part of the plan." She stared at him. "I ruined it." "No," he shook his head. "You made it better. Paul was taking too long to give the signal. He was getting cold feet. But when you whispered to me, when I dropped that fork, Paul thought you'd spotted a real threat. He panicked. He pulled out his phone and sent the signal immediately. He gave me everything I needed." Elena felt sick, so none of it was real. "The betrayal was real," Daniel said quietly. "Paul sold me out. He took money from my enemies. He told them where I'd be when I'd be vulnerable. If that sniper had been real, I'd be dead, and Paul would have walked away rich." "What happened to him?" Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "He's gone," Daniel said simply. The way he said it made it clear Paul wasn't just in jail. Elena stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she needed to move. She walked to the glass wall and looked out at the city. Lights were starting to come on, tiny stars spreading across the dark. "Why am I here?" she asked without turning around. She heard Daniel stand, heard his footsteps as he walked over to stand beside her. "Because you saw something no one else saw," he said. "In a room full of trained men, people whose job it is to watch and protect, you were the only one who spotted that scope. You were the only one who acted." Elena turned to look at him. "I was just doing the right thing." "Exactly," Daniel smiled. "That's why I want you to work for me." Her heart stopped. "What?" "I need people like you," Daniel said. "People who see things, who stay calm under pressure, who do the right thing even when it's dangerous." "I'm a waitress," Elena said weakly. "You're more than that." Daniel pulled an envelope from his pocket, a thick one. "This is $50,000, a thank you, but I'm offering you more, a job, a real one, working for me." Elena looked at the envelope, at the money that could change her life, pay off her debts, get her a better apartment, give her security for the first time in her life. But something in her chest tightened. "What kind of job?" she asked. "Observation," Daniel said. "You'd go places, Watch people, tell me what you see, nothing dangerous, nothing illegal, just your eyes and your brain. Elena took the envelope. It was heavy. She opened it and saw the stacks of cash inside, more money than she'd ever held. She closed it and handed it back to Daniel. His eyebrows went up. You're refusing. I am, Elena said, and her voice was stronger now. I saved you because someone needed to, not for money, not for a job. I don't want to be part of your world. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. It was a real smile this time, not polite, not calculated, real. You're something else, Elena, he said quietly. He put the envelope back in his pocket. Then he pulled out another card, like the one his man had given her at the restaurant. Keep this, he said, pressing it into her hand. You don't work for me, I respect that, but you did something for me, something important, so now I do something for you. What? Elena asked. I take care of you, Daniel said simply. As long as I'm breathing, nothing bad happens to you. No one touches you, no one threatens you, you're under my protection now. Elena looked at the card. I don't want protection. Too late, Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. You don't get a choice in this. You saved my life. Now I owe you mine, that's how this works. Elena wanted to argue, but something in Daniel's eyes told her it would be pointless. I just want a normal life, she said quietly. Then you'll have one, Daniel promised, a safe one. The man with grey hair appeared at the elevator. Sir, we should go. Daniel nodded. He looked at Elena one more time. My driver will take you home. Then he walked away, disappearing into the elevator, leaving Elena standing alone on the roof with a card in her hand and questions spinning in her head. When she got home that night, her apartment felt different, smaller, emptier. She put the card in a drawer and tried to forget about everything. But over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. Her landlord, who had been threatening to raise her rent, suddenly called to say he was lowering it. Her ex-boyfriend, who had been sending threatening messages for months, vanished completely. At the restaurant, when it finally reopened, her manager started treating her differently, with respect, almost with fear. And sometimes, late at night, Elena would see a car parked on her street. Different cars, different nights, but always someone inside watching her building. She was being protected, whether she wanted it or not. 6 months passed like water through her fingers. Elena went back to work at the Obsidian. The restaurant had reopened 3 weeks after that Friday night, and everything looked the same. Same tables, same crystal glasses, same rich people eating food they barely tasted. But table 9 stayed empty. Daniel never came back. Elena told herself she didn't care. She had wanted a normal life, and that's what she got. She worked her shifts. She went home. She paid her bills. Normal. Except it wasn't normal at all. Her apartment building got new security cameras. Her car, which had been breaking down for months, suddenly got fixed by a mechanic who refused to take payment. When a drunk customer grabbed her wrist too hard one night at work, 2 men Elena had never seen before appeared and escorted him out. The customer never came back. She was living in a glass cage made of invisible protection. It should have felt safe. Instead, it felt suffocating. One Tuesday afternoon, Elena was walking home from the grocery store when she saw him. Not Daniel, someone else. A young man, maybe 25, leaning against a black car outside her building. He was tall, with dark hair and a suit that marked him as one of Daniel's people. Elena walked past him, heading for her door. Miss Elena, he called out. She stopped but didn't turn around. I don't want any trouble. No trouble, the young man said. His voice was polite. Careful. I'm James. I work for Mr. Daniel. He asked me to check on you. Elena turned slowly. I'm fine. James nodded. I can see that, but Mr. Daniel wanted to make sure. It's been 6 months. He wanted to know if you needed anything. I don't, Elena said firmly. James reached into his jacket and Elena tensed, but he just pulled out another envelope. smaller this time. He asked me to give you this, James said, holding it out. Elena didn't take it. I already told him I don't want his money. It's not money, James said. It's an invitation. That made Elena pause. To what? Dinner, James said simply. This Friday, 8 o'clock, a restaurant called Lucille. Mr. Daniel would like to see you. Elena's heart did something complicated in her chest. Why? James smiled a little. He didn't tell me, he just said to ask, and to tell you that you can say no, no pressure, no obligation, just an invitation. Elena looked at the envelope, at James's patient face, at the black car that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. She took the envelope. I'll think about it, she said. James nodded, got in his car, and drove away. That night, Elena sat on her couch and opened the envelope. Inside was a card with an address and a time, 8 o'clock, Friday, Lucille, and at the bottom, in handwriting she didn't recognize but somehow knew was Daniel's, were 3 words. Just to talk. Elena told herself she wasn't going. She told herself 100 times over the next 3 days. She had a normal life now. She didn't need to see Daniel, didn't need to get pulled back into his world. But Friday came, and at 7:30 she found herself standing in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear. She settled on a simple black dress, nothing fancy, but nice enough. She did her makeup carefully, put on the one pair of good shoes she owned, and at 7:45 she walked outside to find the same black car waiting. James was driving. He opened the door for her without a word, and she got in. Lucille was on the top floor of one of the oldest buildings in the French Quarter. Elena had walked past it 1,000 times, but never been inside. It was the kind of place that didn't advertise, the kind of place you had to know about. James walked her to the entrance, where a woman in an elegant suit was waiting. Miss Elena, the woman said with a warm smile, Mr. Daniel is expecting you. Please follow me. They took a private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened into a restaurant that took Elena's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sparkling below, white tablecloths, soft lighting, quiet music, and in the center of the room, at a table by the window, sat Daniel. He stood when he saw her. He was wearing a dark suit, perfectly tailored, and for a moment Elena forgot how to breathe. Elena, he said, and his voice was warm, genuinely happy. Thank you for coming. She walked over slowly. You said just to talk. I did. He pulled out her chair. Please sit. She sat. A waiter appeared immediately with wine, pouring for both of them. Elena noticed there was no one else in the restaurant. It was completely empty except for them. Did you rent out the whole place? She asked. Daniel smiled. I own it. Of course he did. Why did you invite me here? Elena asked, getting straight to the point. Daniel took a sip of his wine. Because 6 months ago you saved my life, and I never properly thanked you. You tried to pay me, Elena reminded him. You turned down the money, Daniel said, and the job. You're the first person in 10 years to turn me down. Elena shifted in her chair. I told you, I just want a normal life. And you have one, Daniel said. I made sure of it. Your landlord doesn't bother you. Your ex-boyfriend is gone. You're safe. That was my promise, and I kept it. I know, Elena said quietly, and it was true. She did know. Every time she saw one of his men watching her building, she knew, but I didn't ask for that. No, Daniel agreed. You didn't ask for anything. That's what makes you different. The waiter brought out the first course, something that looked like art on a plate. Elena picked up her fork but didn't eat. Daniel, she said, using his name for the first time, what do you really want? He looked at her across the table, really looked at her, and for a moment the powerful crime boss disappeared and she saw just a man, tired, lonely, human. Honestly, he said, I want to have dinner with someone who isn't afraid of me. Elena blinked. I am afraid of you. No, you're not, Daniel said with a small smile. You're cautious, but you're not afraid. When you warned me about that sniper, you didn't hesitate. You didn't freeze. You did what needed to be done. Most people can't even look me in the eye. Elena realized he was right. She was looking directly at him, had been this whole time. That doesn't mean I want to be part of your world, she said. I know, Daniel said. That's why I like you. They ate in silence for a while. The food was incredible, but Elena barely tasted it. Her mind was spinning. Can I ask you something? She finally said. Anything, Daniel replied. That night at the Obsidian, were you scared? Daniel set down his fork. He looked out the window at the city below. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, honest. Terrified, he said. I knew Paul had betrayed me. I knew there was a plan. But sitting there, waiting, knowing there was a gun pointed at me, even a fake one, yes, I was scared. But you didn't show it, Elena said. I couldn't, Daniel said simply. The moment I show fear, I lose everything. In my world, weakness is death. Elena felt something in her chest soften. That sounds exhausting. Daniel laughed. It was a real laugh, surprising both of them. It is. You have no idea. Then why do it? Elena asked. Why live like this? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Because it's all I know. I was born into this. My father ran this city before me, his father before him. It's in my blood. You could leave, Elena said. Could I? Daniel looked at her with something sad in his eyes. Where would I go? What would I do? This is who I am. Elena understood that feeling more than he knew. She had spent her whole childhood trying to figure out who she was, trying to find where she belonged. I grew up in foster care, she said suddenly. She never told people this. 17 different homes before I turned 18. Know what I learned? Daniel shook his head. I learned that family isn't blood, Elena said. It's choice, and you can choose to be someone different, someone better. Daniel stared at her, really stared, and in his eyes she saw something crack, something vulnerable. Is that what you think of me? He asked quietly. That I need to be better. I think you could be, Elena said honestly, if you wanted to. The waiter came back with dessert, some kind of chocolate thing that probably took hours to make, but neither of them touched it. Elena, Daniel said after a long silence, I didn't just invite you here to talk. Her heart sped up. What do you mean? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. He set it on the table between them. What's that? Elena asked. Information, Daniel said, about you. Elena felt cold. You investigated me. I had to know who you were, Daniel said, after that night. I needed to understand how a waitress saw something my trained men missed. Elena wanted to be angry, but mostly she felt tired. And what did you find? That you're remarkable, Daniel said simply. Foster care from age 3, 17 homes, never adopted. Put yourself through community college while working 3 jobs. No criminal record, no debts, no family. You built yourself from nothing. Elena's throat tightened. Hearing her life summarized like that, in Daniel's voice, made it sound both impressive and incredibly sad. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Daniel pushed the folder toward her. Because I want you to know that I see you, really see you, not just as the woman who saved my life, but as someone extraordinary. Elena opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were papers, documents, and a check. She looked at the amount and her vision blurred. $500,000. Daniel, I can't. It's not payment, he interrupted. It's a gift. No strings, no obligations. I want you to have it, to do whatever you want with your life. Go to school, travel, buy a house, anything. Elena closed the folder, pushed it back across the table. I already told you, I don't want your money. Elena. No, she said firmly. I did what I did because it was right. Not for a reward, not for money, not for anything except that someone was going to die and I could stop it. That's it. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real, genuine smile that changed his whole face. You're going to make me fall in love with you if you keep talking like that, he said. The words hung in the air between them. Elena's heart stopped. What? Daniel stood up, walked around the table, knelt down beside her chair so they were at eye level. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, he said quietly. For 6 months you've been in my head, the way you moved that night, the calm in your voice, the fact that you could have run, but you didn't. You're the first real thing in my life in years. Elena couldn't breathe. Daniel, I'm not asking you for anything, Daniel said quickly. I'm just being honest. For once in my life, I'm being completely honest with someone. Elena looked at him, at this man who controlled half a city, who made people disappear, who lived in a world of violence and secrets, and she saw something in his eyes that made her chest ache. He was lonely, so desperately lonely. Just like her. I can't be with you, she said softly. Your world, it's not mine. I know, Daniel said. I'm not asking you to be, I'm just asking if, maybe sometimes, we could have dinner like this, just 2 people, no business, no games, just us. Elena knew she should say no, knew she should walk away. But looking at Daniel's face, seeing the hope there, the vulnerability, she couldn't do it. Just dinner, she said, nothing more. Daniel smiled like she'd given him the world, just dinner. He stood up, offered her his hand, and helped her out of her chair. They walked to the window together, looking out at the city lights below. It's beautiful, Elena said. Yes, Daniel said, but he wasn't looking at the city, he was looking at her. Over the next year, they had dinner together every Friday, always at Lucille, always just the 2 of them. They talked about everything, her childhood, his family, books, movies, dreams they'd given up on. Slowly, carefully, Elena started to see past the crime boss to the man underneath. And Daniel started to see past his own walls to the person he could have been. Elena still worked at the Obsidian, still lived in her small apartment, still insisted on paying her own bills, but now her life had something it had never had before. Someone who cared. Daniel never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give. He was patient in a way that surprised her, gentle in a way that made her trust him. And despite everything she'd told herself, despite every warning in her head, Elena started to fall in love with him. It happened slowly, in small moments, the way he listened when she talked, the way he remembered details about her life, the way he made her laugh, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. One Friday, almost exactly a year after that first dinner, Daniel picked her up personally instead of sending James. He was driving himself, which he never did. Where are we going? Elena asked as she got in the car. Somewhere different, Daniel said with a mysterious smile. They drove out of the city into the countryside. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and gold. After about an hour, Daniel turned down a long driveway. At the end was a house, not a mansion, just a house, beautiful with a wraparound porch and gardens, but normal-sized, human-sized. What is this? Elena asked as they parked. Mine, Daniel said. I bought it 6 months ago. No one knows about it, not my men, not my enemies, just me, and now you. Elena got out of the car slowly. The house was gorgeous, peaceful, the kind of place she'd dreamed about as a kid in foster care. Daniel unlocked the door and led her inside. It was furnished but simple, comfortable, nothing like the expensive, sterile places Daniel usually lived. Why are you showing me this? Elena asked. Daniel turned to face her. His expression was serious, nervous even. Because I want you to know that I'm trying, he said, to be the person you talked about, someone different, someone better. Elena's heart was pounding. Daniel. I can't leave my world completely, he said. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I can build something separate from it, something clean, something just for me. He took a breath. Something for us, if you want it. Elena looked around the house, at the life it represented, normal, safe, real. What are you asking me? She whispered. Daniel stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his warmth. I'm asking if maybe someday you could see a future with me, not in my world, here, in this place, where I'm just Daniel and you're just Elena. Tears pricked Alina's eyes. You barely know me. I know you saved my life, Daniel said softly. I know you're kind and brave and stubborn. I know you make me want to be better. And I know that every Friday, when I see you, is the only time all week I feel like myself. Elena looked up at him, at this impossible man with his impossible life, offering her an impossible dream. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, Daniel said. Your world is dangerous. I'll keep you safe. People could use me to hurt you. Let them try. Elena laughed through her tears. You're so arrogant. I prefer confident, Daniel said with a small smile. Elena reached up and touched his face. He leaned into her hand like he'd been waiting forever for her touch. Just dinner, she said. That was the deal. Plans change, Daniel whispered. And then he kissed her. It was gentle, careful, full of all the things they hadn't said over the past year, and when Elena kissed him back, she felt something inside her finally settle, finally feel like home. They stayed at the house that night, just talking, curled up on the couch, watching the stars through the big windows. No business, no danger, just two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way. What happens now? Elena asked as the sun started to rise. Daniel pulled her closer. We take it slow. We're careful. You keep your life, I keep mine, but we build something here, together, something no one can touch. And if it doesn't work, Elena asked. Then at least we tried, Daniel said, but I think it will work. I think you're the best decision I ever made. Elena kissed him again. I didn't decide anything. I just told you about a sniper. Best decision I never made then, Daniel said with a grin. Over the next 2 years, they built a life together in that house. Elena still worked, still kept her apartment in the city, but most weekends she spent here with Daniel, away from his world, away from danger. Daniel was changing too. Slowly, carefully, he started to pull back from the violent parts of his business. He focused on the legitimate operations, the restaurants, the real estate, the investments. He told Elena he was building an exit strategy. I can't just walk away, he explained one Sunday morning as they made breakfast together. But I can set things up so that in a few years I can step back, let someone else run things. And then what? Elena asked, flipping pancakes. Then we have a real life, Daniel said. Maybe get married, maybe have kids, maybe just grow old together in this house. Elena's heart swelled. You want kids? With you, Daniel pulled her close. I want everything. But peace never lasts in Daniel's world. 3 years after that night at the Obsidian, trouble came knocking. Elena was at the house alone one Saturday afternoon. Daniel had gone into the city for a meeting. She was in the garden, planting tomatoes, when she heard a car coming up the driveway. She stood up, wiping her hands on her jeans. It wasn't Daniel's car. This one was unfamiliar, red, expensive. A woman got out, tall, beautiful, with dark hair and a dress that probably cost more than Elena's car. She looked around the property with cold, calculating eyes. Can I help you? Elena called out. The woman turned to her, smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. So you're the one, the woman said. Elena's guard went up. The one what? The one who has Daniel wrapped around her finger. The woman walked closer. I'm Rita, Daniel's ex-wife. Elena's blood ran cold. Daniel had mentioned Rita once, said the marriage had been arranged by their families, said it had ended badly 5 years ago, said she was dangerous. Daniel's not here, Elena said carefully. I know, Rita said. I waited until he left. I wanted to meet you, the famous Elena, the waitress who saved his life. Elena didn't like Rita's tone, didn't like the way she was looking at the house. What do you want? Rita laughed. What do I want? I want what's mine. Daniel left me with nothing when we divorced. Nothing. And now I hear he's playing house with some nobody, planning to go legitimate. You need to leave, Elena said. Or what? Rita stepped closer. You'll call Daniel, you'll tell him his crazy ex showed up. He'll just send his men to scare me off, like he always does. She pulled out her phone. But here's the thing, I'm tired of being scared. Rita showed Elena the phone screen. It was a photo of Daniel meeting with men Elena didn't recognize, and in the corner of the photo, a timestamp from last night. Daniel told you he was working on going legitimate, didn't he? Rita said. Told you he was getting out? Let me guess. He's building you a future, a normal life. Elena's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He's lying, Rita said simply. Daniel will never leave this life. It's who he is. And these men, she pointed at the photo, they're from the Morty family, Daniel's biggest rivals, want to know what they're planning. Elena didn't want to know, but Rita told her anyway. They're planning to take over the southern ports, Rita said, and Daniel's helping them in exchange for protection, for power. He's not getting out, Elena, he's going deeper in. Elena felt sick. You're lying. Am I? Rita put her phone away. Ask him, tonight. Ask him who he met with, see if he tells you the truth. Rita walked back to her car. Before she got in, she looked back at Elena. Here's some advice, she said. From one woman who loved Daniel to another, run, because men like him don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. Then she drove away, leaving Elena standing in the garden, her world crumbling. When Daniel came home that night, Elena was waiting. She'd spent hours trying to decide what to believe. Her heart said Daniel wouldn't lie to her, but her head remembered Rita's words, her certainty. Hey, Daniel said, kissing her. Sorry I'm late. The meeting ran long. What meeting? Elena asked quietly. Daniel paused, looked at her carefully. Business, why? Who did you meet with? Daniel's face went guarded. Elena, you know I don't talk about business. Rita was here today, Elena said. Daniel went very still. What? She came here to our house. She showed me photos of you meeting with the Morty family. Elena's voice shook. Is it true? Daniel's jaw clenched. What did she tell you? That you're lying to me, that you're not getting out, that you're going deeper into your world, that everything you've promised me is fake. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looked away, and in that moment, Elena knew. It was true. How long, she asked, her voice breaking, how long have you been lying to me? I wasn't lying, Daniel said. I am trying to get out, but it's complicated, the Mortys. You're working with them, Elena said. I'm managing them, Daniel corrected. There's a difference. Not to me, Elena whispered. Daniel reached for her. Elena, please, let me explain. No, she stepped back. You promised me. You said you were building an exit. You said we could have a real life. We can, Daniel insisted. We will, I just need more time. How much more time? Elena demanded. A year, 5 years, never. Daniel didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. I can't do this. I can't live in your world. I told you that from the beginning. You're not in my world, Daniel said desperately. This house, us, that's separate. Nothing's separate, Elena shouted. Your ex-wife knows about this house, about me, which means your enemies know, which means I'm a target now. Do you understand that? I'm a target because I love you. Daniel's face crumpled. Elena, please. I need you to leave, she said. What? I need you to leave, Elena repeated, her voice steadier now. This house is yours, but I can't be here. I can't be with you, not like this. Elena, don't do this, Daniel begged. Don't walk away. You walked away first, Elena said quietly, when you chose your world over me, over us. She grabbed her bag, her keys, walked past Daniel to the door. He didn't try to stop her. At the door, she turned back one last time. I wish things were different. I wish you were different, but you're not, and I can't save you from yourself. Then she left, got in her car, drove away, and didn't look back. The next 6 months were the hardest of Elena's life, harder than foster care, harder than being alone. Because this time, she knew what she was missing. She moved to a new apartment, started working at a different restaurant, changed her number. She had to disappear from Daniel's life completely because she knew if she didn't, she'd go back to him, and that would destroy her. She still saw signs of his protection, still noticed the cars watching her building, still got the feeling she was being kept safe, but Daniel never approached her, never called, never showed up. He was respecting her wishes, and somehow that hurt even more. 1 year to the day after she left, Elena was walking home from work when she saw a familiar black car. Her heart stopped, but it wasn't Daniel, it was James. He rolled down the window. "Miss Elena, I know you don't want to see him, but could you give me 5 minutes, please?" Elena almost said no, but something in James's face made her pause. He looked tired, worried. "5 minutes," she said, getting in the car. James didn't drive anywhere, just parked and turned to face her. "He's done it," James said. "Mr. Daniel, he's out." Elena's heart skipped. "What?" "It took him a year, but he did it," James explained. "He handed over his operations, all of them, to his cousin Marcus. He kept the legitimate businesses, but everything else, gone." Elena couldn't breathe. "Why?" "Because you were right," James said simply. "Because he realized he couldn't have both, his world and you, so he chose you." Tears filled Elena's eyes. "But I left him." "He knows," James said gently. "He's not asking you to come back. He's not asking for anything. He just wanted you to know that he did what he promised. He got out." James handed her an envelope. Not money this time, just a letter. "He wanted me to give you this," James said. "No pressure, no expectations, just the truth." Then James drove away, leaving Elena sitting on a bench with the envelope in her hands. She opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, in Daniel's handwriting, was a letter. "Elena asterisk. If you're reading this, then James found you. I hope you're well, I hope you're happy. I think about you every day. I'm writing to tell you that I kept my promise. I'm out. It wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, but I did it, for you, because you were right. I couldn't be the person you deserved while living that life. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that what we had was real, that you changed me, that loving you was the best thing I ever did. The house is still there, still ours. If you ever want to see it again, to see me again, I'll be there every Friday at 8, waiting just in case. But if you don't come, I understand. You deserve a normal life, a safe life, and if that's not with me, then I want you to have it anyway. Thank you for saving my life, not just that night at the restaurant, every day after. Yours always, asterisk. Daniel." Elena read the letter 3 times, then she folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. She went home, made tea, sat on her couch, and thought. Friday came, 8 o'clock approached. Elena stood in her apartment, staring at her closet, facing the biggest decision of her life. She could stay, she could move on, she could build a life without Daniel. Or she could take a chance, she could believe that people can change, that love can be stronger than fear. At 7:45, Elena put on her black dress, the same one from that first dinner. She did her makeup, put on her good shoes. And at 8 o'clock, she drove to the house. The lights were on, Daniel's car was in the driveway. Elena sat in her car for a long moment, gathering her courage. Then she got out, walked up to the door, and knocked. Daniel opened it. When he saw her, his whole face transformed. Hope, joy, love. "Elena," he breathed. "Just dinner," she said, but she was smiling. "That's what we agreed on, right?" Daniel laughed, actually laughed. "Just dinner." "And maybe," Elena stepped closer, "maybe we could try the rest, if you're really out, if you're really done." "I'm done," Daniel promised. "I swear to you, on everything I'm done." Elena looked at him, really looked, and she saw the truth in his eyes. "Then yes," she said, "I want to try." Daniel pulled her into his arms, held her like he'd never let go, and Elena held him back, feeling finally, after everything, like she'd come home. They had dinner that night, and the next Friday, and the next. And eventually, Elena moved into the house, the one nobody knew about, where they could just be Elena and Daniel, no crime boss, no danger, just two people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light. 3 years later, Elena was in the garden again, planting tomatoes, when Daniel came out with a bottle of wine. But not just any bottle, she recognized it. "Is that," she started. "From that night," Daniel confirmed, "I've been saving it." He poured 2 glasses, handed one to her. "What are we toasting?" Elena asked. Daniel got down on one knee. Elena's heart stopped. "We are toasting," Daniel said, pulling out a ring, "to second chances, to the woman who saved my life twice, once from a bullet and once from myself. Elena, will you marry me?" Elena set down her wine glass, dropped to her knees in front of him, took his face in her hands. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, yes." Daniel kissed her, and somewhere in the city, church bells rang, the sun set, and two people who had found each other in the most impossible way began their real life together. Because sometimes salvation comes in a whisper, sometimes it comes in a look, sometimes it comes from the person you least expect in the moment you need them most. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it comes with a second chance. The fork dropped, the moment passed, but the promise remained. And Daniel kept it for the rest of his life. Thank you for watching. Would you risk everything for someone you barely know? Could you walk away from a dangerous love that saved you? Drop a comment below with where you're watching from and tell me, would you have warned Daniel or stayed silent? Hit subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night.